The xParticleSkinner lets you create a mesh around the volume of your particles. Let's have a look at this scene. In this file we have a simple emitter, some particles and a turbulence modifier to create some wavy motion. What we're going to do is add a mesh to the particle system. Select the xParticleSkinner object and drop the emitter in the sources objects list. That creates a volume mesh. If we play it, you can see it generates while the particles are moving, and you can see we have some problem areas in the mesh. Firstly, the polygons are too big and there's some flickering. We can alleviate these problems with some of the settings. First thing to note is the polygon size in the viewport is set to 10 centimeters, while the render polygon size is 5. If I render it, you'll see that it looks different to what you see in the viewport. This comes down to the polygon size that you see in the viewport. If you want to see a 1-to-1 ratio, set the same settings in the polygon size to the render polygon size. And you can see it fixes a lot of the problems. Other options we have is speed stretch, which will enable a little bit of speed motion to the particles. We have smoothing options such as particles, geometry, and preserve volume, and that will bring it back to the outside volume of the particles. As you can see with it off, you get a very nice clean smooth mesh, and when playing it's a lot better than previous. Some things to note with the Skinner: if you have flickering meshes, that's entirely down to the amount of particles you have. It needs more particles to become smoother. So if you have any problems with flickering, just enable more particles. Let's move on. We have a generate option, and that's going to tell you if you're going to generate quads or tries, and depending on your simulation you can see which one suits best. Inside this tab we have a surface cutting option. What that does is boolean out a shape based on if there's objects. So let's get a sphere, move that down here, put the sphere in the Skinner surface cut, and you can see it's cut the surface away. If I hide the sphere from the viewport, it's booleaning out around that sphere, and when you play it you'll see it cut itself out of that shape. When it hits it, it flows over. With the options here, you have an option to have outside the mesh or inside the mesh. If I get the sphere, lift it up, you'll see it's only generating the Skinner inside the volume of the sphere. Go back to the Skinner and set it back to outside. With some particle culling options, which is going to kill the particles based on objects, and enable or disable threading depending on if you need it to be faster or slower. Back to the main options, we have various surfaces, starting with heart as a default. You have Blin, which is more like metaballs, so it's a blobbier surface. Whirl, Links, Renderman, Heart, Geist, Fluid, and Zubridson. Zubridson works best for fluid simulations. Each has their own merits, and you will need to play around with which one works best for the simulation that you're doing at the time. Surface level will tighten the mesh, as again will polygon size. Smaller polygons give you a much cleaner mesh. Surface size you can change to be custom or source. Source is based on the emitter, and also you can change these as well.